Hi there, I'm Paige with the Winter Woolly Retreat, talking about the Little Toy Sheep by Rosie, Posie Knit Company. Stephanie was unable to make it to the retreat, so I'm just going to give a few little pointers for assembling your sheep. I think her pattern does a great job of, walking you through the different processes. But if you are into making toys, or feel like making multiple sheep, then here's some shortcuts you might consider for your next one. I'm also going to do a really quick tutorial of how to get these little curly guys, because those are pretty fun and they do make a big difference in your sheep. So in the pattern, Stephanie has us knit all the different pieces and then put them together at the end, which is great. You should absolutely do that for your first sheep. On my second sheep, however, I am doing things a little bit differently just because I hate sewing things on. I hate it. So let's talk about the tail. There we go. Cute little nubbin guy there. For my second sheep, and I'm not going to show this, I'm just going to talk about it because it's pretty awkward to watch. So you start with 9 stitches and then do that for a couple rows and then work your way down to 3 stitches and then bind off and sew that on. So if you wanted to pick up and knit your tail, you would kind of work that backwards. So you would pick up 3 stitches and then increase up to 9 and then bind off and hide your little ends in that tail, kind of serving as stuffing. So you could absolutely pick up and knit things on. Like, it'd be pretty easy to pick up and knit the little legs on. That could be harder because you want to make sure the placement's right, and it is a little more permanent if you pick it up and knit it on. It's easy to get the legs not quite right the first time and then have your sheep, like, it's a little staggering. Little wonky donkey sheep, don't want that. But anyhow, so have fun with it. There are definitely places to, to pick up and knit versus knitting little pieces and then sewing them on. So just keep that in mind as you're making your first one. Think, oh, this could be easier next time around. Let me see. Another little tip I have for all toy makers, crochet, knitting, doesn't matter. Give yourself lots of room to work with. In knitting, it's pretty standard to leave a 6-inch tail so that you can weave in your ends. I make that closer to a foot for knitting little things like this, just so you have plenty of room to sew on your little limbs. Again, that doesn't apply if you are picking up and knitting, then the usual 6 inches is fine. But give yourself lots of little wiggle room. It's really annoying to use up all your tail and then have to add more yarn to get 4 or 5 more stitches in. Okay, and then he needs a little embroidered face and I just haven't quite got there yet. But let's talk about these little loop guys. That's probably the most challenging part of the whole project, and they look much harder than they actually are. So I'll just get right to those. I am knitting the hair on the sheep right now, so his little hair, that's put on separately. So I've done the first bit, and for the next part you are just going to add the little loops on every stitch. On the body it's every other stitch for a while, but on this guy it's every stitch. And have fun with them, make them inconsistent. Experiment. A couple tips I have are twist your yarn clockwise, and that'll get obvious in a second. I would use applied yarn, I think it'll hold up a little better. But then, just have fun with it. So I made his little curls on his hair longer than the ones on his body, and I think that's pretty cool, so I'm going to do that again. So actually I'll go this direction. All right, so how to make these little twisty guys. So start knitting your stitch, okay? And then just pull that yarn out a couple inches and play with it. Make it 2 inches, make it 3 inches, make them a bunch of different ways. And then just take that yarn and start twisting it clockwise. And twist, 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 twist till it's super tight. Keep that end out so that you can easily put that little end right back on your stitch or back on your needle. In the pattern it says to knit 2 together. I think it's actually a little easier to knit 2 together through the back loop. You just pick it up a little easier. So I'm just going to do that. So what I just did was, again, so I started knitting that stitch, pulled the loop forward, twisted it up, and then put it back on. So then I'm knitting through the back loop because I've got the one I just put on and the original part of the stitch that stayed on there. And I knit those two together through the back loop. If you find yourself decreasing, you are not doing this right. So I'll do the next one, and it's the middle hair, so I'm going to make it a little longer. So I'm going to start that stitch. All right, pull that forward. I've still got the old stitch on the needle, and I'm just going to pull this yarn forward a little bit. So give myself a couple inches there. I'm just going to twist it clockwise again. And you don't have to pull that much out. You don't have to, you can pull more out. There's not really a wrong way to do this. Normally I say just be consistent. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you're consistent because it's a fuzzy sheet. All right, so my loop is all twisted. It's kind of curling back on itself. So I'm going to put that back on there. So I have the old part of the stitch and the new part of the stitch. And I'm going to knit those together through the back loop. If knitting two together is more natural for you, then by all means do that. I would stay consistent on that part though. All right, so here, can you see I've got my first little loop. My second little loop is a little longer. Okay, and I'm gonna do the third one. So starting that stitch, pulling that forward. Again, the old part of the stitch is still on. Pull that forward a little bit. Twisty, twisty, twisty. All right, and put that end of the loop back on the needle. Knit together, knit those two together. All right, sweet. That's done. That's how you make those little loopy guys. And again, that will be the sheep's hair. So he kind of has some crazy hair. You can tell he's mine. Anyhow, so that's pretty much the twisted loop thing going on, and that it's good fun to play with it. It does take quite a while, so you know, don't put yourself in a rush and have to crank one of these out in one night. I think I have about maybe 2.5 hours in the body, and then maybe an hour in all the other parts, then you know, a few minutes in assembly. You know, then you can sew on the little face. If you are with the Winter Woolies, I have given you a little needle and embroidery floss for you to put a little face on. You could also put some eyes on with beads. That could be pretty cute. See my knitting with beads video for tips on that. But yeah, big thing is have fun with it. Let's see, my second one is a little white sheep, so he'll have a white face. Here we go. He'll be a sheep eventually. Okay, have fun with it, make it your own, be consistent. So if you, you know, if you knit the first leg on and then, or if you knit the first leg and then decide, oh, sewing this on afterwards kind of sucks, you know, don't do one leg differently than the others. So do all the legs the same. Don't decide after the first leg that you're going to pick them up and knit them. Whatever you do, keep it consistent assembly-wise. Enjoy your little sheep.